very, very exciting news from this week, which is, of course, we went viral. Thank you so much if you are one of the 2.6 million people who listened to our clip on digital sovereignty.
There are only a few itty-bitty, teeny-weeny problems with OpenClaw.
I'm going to be a poet because I can't make AI safe. Or is it a general? There's a lot going on in the world, and actually engaging with that is really difficult.
What is the market like out there, mate? What is it like? Are the jobs? Is it turning the corner? It's the desperate shout that comes from Sophie that gets.
So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 10 of season 2 of the CTO Lens. Good morning, David. How are you?
Hello, Sophie. I am very well, thank you very much. Did you have a pleasant Valentine's weekend?
I did have a pleasant Valentine's weekend. I had, as with every year, I get a lot of people, because my surname is Valentine, saying, "Oh gosh, it's your day," and they make jokes about it as if I haven't been on this earth with the same surname for 30 plus years. But it was nice. Nothing too exciting. One of my favorite parts of Valentine's Day is sending nice words to my female friends in the spirit of Galentine's Day. And we say how much we appreciate each other, and you can be all lovey-dovey in the way that sometimes with someone of the opposite sex, they can find it a little bit icky. What about you? Did you buy flowers? Did you go out to dinner?
I bought my wife a book.
Oh, what book did you buy?
Wuthering Heights.
Interesting. And did you take her to the film?
No, we're going to see the film soon. She has the book, of course she does. She's a sophisticated person. But this was a nicely bound, decorated version of the book that she fancied. So it wasn't particularly expensive, but yes. And she bought me a book on psychology.
Oh.
All about psychology. So, there you go. That's the kind of romantic gestures that we do. We didn't go out for a big meal, but every year, I don't know whether I've talked about this before, every year on this weekend, we go on an annual pilgrimage to the O2 in London on the Sunday. So we were there yesterday. And we go see Strictly Come Dancing, the live tour.
Oh.
My wife is a super fan. There are many super fans, but she is a super fan, and so every year I'm one of those sort of reluctant husbands who moans about having to watch it for 3 months of the year, moans about having to go to it, moans about it all the time, and then as soon as it's either on the telly or I'm at the live tour, I'm like, "Oh, did you see that fleck? Oh, that was great." Sort of thing. So I'm like a secret fan myself, but I just do a bit of bravado about it. But every year she's a very undemanding person, my wife, and her one request is that I get her row A seats at the O2 for the Strictly Come Dancing live tour final show. And she loves all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we were there on Sunday and we had a pleasant time. And that's our sort of Valentine's routine.
Amazing. I love that. Well, you will have to send me details on how to get tickets because my mum is also obsessed with Strictly Come Dancing. But that we don't need to bore our listeners with the details of websites and things like that. But what we can bore our listeners with is some very, very exciting news from this week, which is, of course, we went viral. So thank you so much if you are one of the 2.6 million people who listened to our clip on digital sovereignty and the French government moving away from Teams. Really, really exciting for us. I think in particular to see how much engagement and discussion and interaction there were in the comments across those, I think it was tens of thousands of comments across all of the different platforms. And I think it's something that it's so exciting for us because we see people engaging as individuals with the podcast when they download it and they stream it and things like that. But it's so important to have in-depth interpersonal discussions around what's happening, in tech and in the news, so that we can, really grow our shared perspective. And, obviously, David, you and I, we have a particular perspective, but this stuff is so subjective. So that was something really, really exciting for us to see that really popping off in the comments, as they say.
It was huge. And you never know. That's the interesting thing about the internet and people around the world. You never know what's going to just trigger people. You never know what's going to get them excited. So we'll always be searching for those little nuggets that people are interested in, which is, I think, why it's good that we cover a wide array of things. And digital sovereignty obviously just triggered a lot of people, and I think that's why we were talking about it in the first place. It's something that's on people's agenda. So yeah, it was great to get such engagement. Hopefully that will transfer into regular listeners who will get more nuggets and will go more viral. And I don't know, we could be you and I could be on Strictly Come Dancing this time next year, Sophie, as celebrities, sort of Z-listers, but they're the kind of people who turn up there anyway.
Speak for yourself, David
Well,
Crawford.
maybe you'll be
But
more of a W sort of guy.
yeah, maybe a V. No, it's such a good point, and as they say, if you like that, there's more where that came from. So, we do always say we hope that people kind of subscribe so that you get us in your podcast feed. I love podcasts, and I'll find a fantastic one and I'll forget to subscribe, and then I miss out on it and I forget about it. So it's a great way to kind of make sure you can keep in touch with everything that we're sharing. And of course, if you enjoyed that content, if you enjoy our content in general, do make sure that you come along to our events. We've got several events live coming up across the coming months. You can find that on our website. And that goes back to the community piece. A really big part of what people tend to enjoy at our events, it's not only listening to experts on panels sharing their insights that you really can't find anywhere else, but it's those peer level discussions with equally excellent people who can bring a different perspective. They can challenge each other. They can share insights. And we do see people forming really fantastic relationships at our events and coming back time and again and reconnecting with those contacts. So hop over to our website and make sure you sign up, because they do fill up really, really quickly. Onto the news. So breaking news from the past, I think this morning or late last evening, we have some updates on a UK online safety bill. So Starmer, writing in Substack, which I guess that's where we get sort of direct updates from our government now, has pledged to respond more quickly to close loopholes in laws designed to protect children online. He sort of referenced the work or the interaction around these sort of grok sexualized deepfakes of mostly last month, where the response there, they kind of pushed Ofcom to investigate and promised to criminalize the act, and very much counted that as a win. And it looks like the government wants to rack up wins in terms of online safety. So just to break down this news, the main new proposals, there's quite a few of them, but the main elements include, first of all, that coroners would notify Ofcom of the death of any child using a sort of social media platform aged 5 to 18. And the purpose behind that is so that when there are deaths, in particular suicides, of which we very sadly have seen a number in the news recently, if there is any sort of interaction between the cause of death and information held on those platforms, that information can be leveraged to understand what went on. Typically now it's deleted or it's very difficult to access. A second proposal is that AI chatbots would be included in the Online Safety Act. As we know, the Online Safety Act is something that was passed in 2023. And the intention there is to regulate online content that is deemed sort of illegal or harmful to children. Really interestingly, it currently doesn't include chatbots like ChatGPT. As we know, ChatGPT, everyone got very excited about in November 2022. This law was passed in 2023, but it was first drafted in 2017. So we're really seeing those timelines of tech development and legislative development kind of misaligning and kind of missing really significant technological developments. And in response to that, they are considering introducing new legislation that would allow swifter responses to improvements in technology. So Liz Kendall, the technology secretary, suggested that in the same way we have a yearly finance bill where everyone gets very excited about the budget and it's an annual opportunity to revisit, financial structuring in the UK, we would do the same with technology, which is really exciting. So, I mean, David, have you caught this? What are your takeaways from these announcents?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this space, right? And I think the government are really jumping onto this a little bit. Some of that is a little bit of bandwagon jumping, I dare say. But there's some real people in here. So I think I saw her on Breakfast this morning. Ellen Room, her son Jules died in 2022 at the age of 14. So these aren't just government policies; these are real people behind these things. She's been campaigning for it. She believes he was trying an internet challenge which went wrong, but was never able to access his data to prove it. If she could have accessed, so it would give her peace of mind and also would help to warn against other things. So, but it just seems like a no-brainer, and we all have backups. We all restore our phones from one cloud to the other, and all. This cannot be hard from a technology point of view. So it's just a regulatory decision, and I think it's just yeah. I think the government is saying they're going to do lots of things, and there's that sort of spins us off into the story. With the mums fighting in America at the minute, right? So there's a bunch of mums who've gone to the Supreme Court in America, and they're fighting against Meta and YouTube, and basically saying there was a young lady there called KGM or KGM, and allegedly they think she was harmed through spending too much time on these social media platforms, and then that spins us off into another story. These are all blurred together. That the Instagram boss, or one of them, Adam Mosseri, was he was testifying at a landmark trial in Los Angeles last week. And I mean, these are all sound bites. Of course, there was lots of discussion, but the sound bite that caught him was this young girl, KGM, was apparently spent 16 hours on Instagram social media platforms. That was her biggest sort of consumption in one day. And he was like, it's problematic, but not an addiction. And then spent a long time with his lawyers trying to define, that he wasn't an expert in addiction. So he was, and you're just like, somebody just sort of slap us all a little bit, sort of thing. There's just so much obviousness in here. And we just keep hearing, ever since a month or two ago when Australia said, well, we're banning it, we're doing it. And now everybody is like creeping. I'm just like, get on with it. Just get on with it. We just need to lock all this down, protect our minors, do a better job of parenting, both as parents and as a government.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's vastly interconnected, and that was actually a quote from Starmer in his Substack article. He said he wants to crack down on the addictive elements of social media, stop the autoplay, the never-ending scrolling that keeps our children hooked on their screens. And if that means a fight with the big social media companies, then bring it on. And as you say, that is exactly what we're seeing in this this kind of landmark case in LA. That's, as you say, KGM against Meta and Google. And it's really difficult, right? Like we do have clinical definitions of addiction. I don't know if you know this. The clinical definition of addiction is that a person continues to pursue a behavior even though it causes them harm. And that's very much something that KGM is alleging here, that these kind of addictive algorithms developed by these companies led her to experience harm. And obviously the kind of the defense against that, that these, your Meta and your Google are arguing, is that yes, there was harm, but it wasn't due to these companies. But we are starting to see evidence coming out. This, we'll see news and kind of snippets coming out of this case in the coming sort of 5-6 weeks. But we're starting to see little pieces of evidence. One that caught my eye was a 2015 internal email by Mark Zuckerberg, asking that time spent on the platforms, kind of owned by Meta, increased by 12%. And that was an internal business goal. And so that very much sounds as though they're looking to increase it. And we're kind of hearing bits coming out about, decisions made and reversed, and kind of the internal almost turmoil of decision-making in these companies about, well, we can grow the company, but what are the risks associated with that growth that can harm users and particularly young users? So I think it's going to be really interesting to see more tidbits come out from those trials in coming weeks. And yeah, I think we're probably very lucky to be able to see those tidbits because, of course, Snapchat and TikTok, who are originally involved in the trial, they both reached settlements ahead of the trial, which ostensibly is so that they weren't forced to reveal all of this kind of internal information about algorithm development and internal goals during the trial itself. So we have a new agent tool. David, have you been using OpenClaw?
I haven't, but I am looking for a new executive assistant type tool. I've only ever once had a proper EAPA, and she was absolutely lovely, but she was so ruthlessly protective of my time that I was wondering why nobody ever came and spoke to me. It was because they couldn't really get in my diary, because she was like a little overprotective in places, but she did a cracking job, and I enjoyed her. But actually, there's so many tools. I'm pretty self-sufficient. You could do it,
Right.
but I need help with my diaries. I'm fractional, as you know, which means I run about 4 different diaries. I can combine them together. I just need somebody to take all this pain away from me, right? When I'm working. A bot can sort out when I'm available, right? And if we're saying that OpenClaw is the bot for me, well, bring it on. I'll have it.
I mean, well, as you say, it might be the bot for you, and we're starting to hear reviews come in, or we're starting to understand kind of further details about whether or not this is the bot for you. So, I mean, there was one user quote that said, ClaudeBot. So there are a couple of different names. So OpenClaw, Maltbot, and ClaudeBot. They're basically all the same thing. Used to be ClaudeBot, but Anthropic made them change it because it was too close to Claude, which I think is reasonable. One quote was, ClaudeBot is like an Apple product. When it runs, it's like magic until it doesn't. I had a friend who was working on developing an agentic AI, and we tried to get it to book some flights for me, and it got stuck. I think Skyscanner had a click here for 3 seconds kind of capture type thing, and it got stuck. It couldn't do it. So I think there are holes, but I think one big question here is that in my diary, there are lots of private things. And, if I'm sharing logins and stuff like that, my diary is connected to my email, is connected to, payment systems, all of these different things. And there was something that came out in the news that researchers have actually found hundreds of exposed multibot. Again, it's a different name for the same thing, instances. And you'll like this. This included API keys, private messages, the ability to send messages as the user, and root shell access, which is a little bit terrifying when you hear that. And it's similar to, we had a number of months ago that if you share, depending on your settings, if you share your ChatGPT conversation with someone else, you can actually access it through Google. Anyone can access it. So I think definitely privacy and security is going to be a concern as we start seeing these tools evolve and kind of broaden in their adoption.
So one of the quotes I saw was from Computer World's Stephen Vaughan Nichols, and he said, "There are only a few itty-bitty, teeny-weeny problems with OpenClaw. To do useful things like reserving your hotel room, getting your pizza delivered, or cleaning up your email box, it needs your name, password, credit card number, and all the other things any crook also wants." And I'm like, yeah, that's the challenge, right? Now, I don't know. I've been around a while, before the internet really became a huge, great thing. And it was one of the initial questions that people asked. They were like, right, why would I put my credit card details into the internet that I'm just going to get ripped off? And the analogy I gave, and we're talking a good 30 years ago here, Sophie, right? The analogy I gave is when you go to your local restaurant and you hand over your credit card and they go away, this is before you were even born, right, Sophie? And they go with a machine, they would just go and take a physical reading off the top of the little indented digits on your credit card. This is before the machines existed, right? And there was nothing stopping them doing that 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And then when you left the restaurant, writing out, credit card receipts in your name sort of thing. The crooks are always there. We shouldn't let that hold us back. We should just try and find ways of using this good technology, but with protection from the crooks. We got to find a way forward. We shouldn't be scared. We should just be diligent and make sure that we're doing things properly, is my view.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, totally agree with you. And hopefully there is an opportunity for OpenClaw to have that sort of further support and further investment, because the founder of OpenClaw, Moltbot, Claudebot, whatever you want to call it, Peter Steinerberger, has now joined OpenAI. And he's there to drive the next generation of personal agents. And OpenAI has said that OpenClaw will live on as an open source project and it'll be supported by OpenAI. So hopefully some good investment to help kind of move forward that use case, improve the ability to have these tools be impactful while ensuring security and privacy as well.
Well, he's definitely going to get support, isn't he? He's definitely going to get the might of OpenAI behind him and all that kind of stuff. The same cannot be said of Rinat Sharma. Now, do you know who he is?
I think he was he's in the news because he's at Anthropic. He was at Anthropic, and he has left, and he made a statement about leaving. Am I thinking about the right person?
You are. He's saying the world isn't. So he was an AI safety researcher. Emphasis on the safety there, right? Mm-hmm. He's saying the world is in peril, and he's left Anthropic because he wants to instead look to pursue writing and studying poetry, and move back to the UK to become invisible. I mean, if you come on this podcast, you won't be invisible. But I think that this is interesting. He basically sort of saying he doesn't, the thing he was there to do, which was to make AI, good, have some guardrails and stuff. It's just clearly not happening in his view, and obviously doesn't feel able to move forward on that. So that's really quite worrying. And so another guy joins AI to do OpenAI to do great things. One of them leaves Anthropic because he doesn't think he's going to be able to do great things in the right way.
From memory, I did catch this, and I think he had a reference to, bioweapons and the world as a whole. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, is that what's driving this behavior to go and say, I'm going to be a poet because I can't make AI safe? Or is it a general, oh God, there's a lot going on in the world, and actually engaging with that is really difficult, and I'm going to kind of hide away and engage with what's kind of magic and beautiful. And the reason I say that is because we've seen people leaving OpenAI as well. I think there was a sort of senior leader who left OpenAI, and they were concerned about the adverts. I don't know if you saw the sort of Anthropic's Super Bowl advert that was a little bit terrifying, and you're kind of speaking to your therapist, and ChatGPT is your therapist, and suddenly it starts recommending sexy seniors or something like that. I might be mixing my use cases there, which is obviously terrifying. But then someone came out later and said, yeah, obviously we're not going to do that. We're going to be responsible. We've seen people leaving XAI, which everyone got very concerned about, as they love to do when it's anything to do with Elon Musk. But this is something that's quite natural after the announcement of a merger, where a lot of people say working in this company is going to change and it's been great, but it's going to, it won't align with what I'm looking to do. So I don't know, it's tricky to work out which are the signals where we can say, there are people who are working on these very advanced foundational technologies and they know something we don't know and they're trying to get out. And when they're just going, it's not right for me for a variety of reasons. When do you tell when it's kind of smoke signaling fire, or when is there just smoke and mirrors?
You never know. And what do they say? All PR is good PR, right? So, maybe they get rid of these high profile people every now and again so that people tune in. Who knows? I can tell you that what is happening, though, is that some businesses are just quietly getting on with getting AI to form part of their core businesses. And one of those is Airbnb. So Airbnb have recently stated that a third of its customer support is now handled by AI in the US and Canada. So this is one of these custom-built chatbot AI agent things that handle stuff. And again, I think about this because we're all looking for the AI use case, right? We're all looking for what is the thing that's going to change the world and stuff like that, because none of us have really found it yet. And then this is one of those which is like, well, chatbots have been around for a while. If it does the job, I'm sort of all right with it. I don't mind. I mean, there's the whole thing about, is it replacing humans in jobs and all of that kind of stuff. I get that. But in this case, people want good service. And if there's an AI bot that's handling, basic, simple inquiries for Airbnb and it works, is that a big deal? Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the quote from Brian Chesky, who of course is the CEO of Airbnb, said, "We think this is going to be massive because not only does this reduce the cost base, which, for anyone reading even slightly between the lines, he's talking about redundancies, although I haven't seen whether Airbnb have been making redundancies. Obviously, we've seen that at other big tech firms. But the quality of service is going to be a huge step change. And I don't know if that is your experience, David. Of sort of speaking with an AI chatbot. My recent experience was chatting with some, I was about to say some people. It wasn't people, it was a chatbot at Whoop. And they weren't helping me, and they kept on saying the same thing. And you go, well, that doesn't make sense. Can you tell me something different? And I got so frustrated to the point where I said, just put me on with a human. And they said, I understand that you want to speak with a human, and then continue to be a robot and not put me in touch with a human. And our producer, Luke, has recently introduced us to this concept of N-shitification. And that's this concept of introducing AI to replace something that was previously not done by AI, whether that was a rules-based computing system or a human being, and it just gets worse for the user. I mean, have you used any, obviously not by choice, but any kind of customer support bots? And what was your experience, David?
Yes, and I've had good and bad experience, right? So I love to play the game of trying to work out whether it is, an AI agent or not, particularly the voice, if you've got a voice one. And I had this experience only a couple of weeks ago where it was, it's a perfect human voice, right? And it came on and it was saying all the right things in all the right gaps and stuff like that. But something in my spider sense just went off. And I said, you're not a human, you're an AI agent, just as a statement of fact. And it did this. It went, ha, you've caught me out, but I can still help you do so and so and so and so. And I thought, yeah, that's probably the way to have dealt with it. To just, rather than hang up on me or go, no, I don't know, I didn't understand that request, or whatever. It just dealt with it with humor. And I sort of did, I did hang up on it because I didn't want their service. But, it's just like, yeah, I don't mind. I've had good and bad experience. But you know what? I've had good and bad experience with humans, Sophie. So, there's a little bit of me. I think it's the level. I think what we need those AI agents to do is work out what the depth of this conversation, what's going to happen. Pick up on my voice, pick up on the range at which I'm speaking and stuff. Am I on a mission? Am I really, or have I just called up to get a little bit of a tip on how to do something, right? Because there's some stuff I don't mind being dealt with. There's other stuff where I want somebody to deal with me in a more emotionally intelligent way, and that probably requires a human.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You and I both work in the health space, and we have seen people coming out with these kind of valence detection chatbots, sort of chatty systems where they listen to your voice and can work out whether you're in distress or not. But again, what if they get them wrong and you're really pissed off and it hasn't detected it? And it's all a bit of a challenge. But you're right, you do have difficulty with humans, or we have non-AI rules-based systems. I remember working on one of those in 2019, and they're not perfect. So I think it's all this kind of how can we balance opportunities, capitalize on opportunities while mitigating risks. And there's never any one answer, is there?
No, there isn't. There isn't. But on this whole AI is doing everything now, right? It's not true yet. But I spotted at the bottom of this story, which was on TechCrunch, that associated with what we're talking about, that Spotify had told investors that its best developers, don't know what that means for its worst developers, but its best developers hadn't written a single line of code since December, thanks to AI. Now, when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I'm all right with that for Spotify because it's a music listening platform. If it glitches or blips or does something weird, they'll fix it. It's not, nobody died, stuff. But then to your point about healthcare or, financial banks and services and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, I'm just not sure. I want everything to be written in AI. Maybe AI tools helping you, getting you there, but everything, I'm a little scared about that.
It's really interesting, actually, that you mentioned that. If your best developers haven't written any code, what happens to them? Do they stick? They're probably quite expensive, I imagine. Could you replace them with some really fantastic prompt engineers? It's a lot of complexity coming out of that.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Anyway, that was the week of news that we picked up on. I wonder which one of those will go viral, Sophie. I wonder which one we'll get an opinion on. We'll have to see. But thanks very much for taking us through the news this week, Sophie. Jon Sheehan, As I Live and Breathe.
I don't think you realise how nerve-wracking this is. Do you know that?
It's not nerve-wracking. You're in
Surely
safe hands.
not.
You're in safe hands.
I get.
We're very nice.
But Sophie and David, you are sort of like, you've done a few of these, and I thought sort of like it was usual. I had that chat with David, and then also had a chat with Luke, and it's like, yeah, it seems a good idea, and then, oh no, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
You're here. We'll go gently. Jon and I have known each other for a while. And I can't remember how long, Jon. I'm thinking it must be getting on for 10 years. I'm not sure, but it's
2015.
Right?
I looked on our notes on our database today.
Well done.
2015, mate.
That is superb. And you've got a database with notes that go back that long. Well done, you. Well done. I just chuck my books away every time I finish them. And they're gone. But it must mean that we kept in touch, Jon, because you make it into each annual book sort of thing. And Jon is I'll let you introduce yourself properly, Jon. I don't want to do you a disservice by saying what you are and what your skill sets are. But nonetheless, we bumped into each other. You've provided, in various roles I've had, you've provided me with some great team members of different shapes and sizes to enable me to sort of work my magic, or rather get them to work their magic and me take the credit for it. So, that's worked well. But we hit it off a long time ago, and we meet up still every now and again, even if we haven't got any business to conduct. And I think that's a good sign of a good relationship. But let's get you to introduce yourself, Jon, and then we'll ask you some questions and get into
Okay. Yeah. Hi guys. So I'm Jon Sheehan. I am co-founder of Burns Sheehan. We are a technology recruitment consultancy with offices in London and Manchester. And next month we are 22 years old as a business. So we've gone through, it's gone through quite a few changes over the years, I'd say. We are very proud. We've been part of a journey to a number of really successful tech-led businesses in the UK. I think it's also added to it a bit like what David was saying. I feel quite proud of a lot of us at Burns Sheehan, where we've been actually in a lot of people's careers since actually even early careers. And I've been doing this now for 28 years. So you can imagine that I've seen people where, when I did sort of lower level recruitment, gone into those, second jobbers and stuff like that. And now they're sitting there as CTOs, CPOs, CEOs of really good companies. And what I kind of, you lot got me thinking about it. I think what I'm really quite pleased with this about is sometimes a little bit our forward thinking. It was 2012 we did our first ever event, and I don't think many people were even contemplating events then. Best thing I think we ever did, went down that route to get closer to our communities. And then from there, we've done all those things like our annual market report, our salary surveys. We carry on with our tech events, but actually, probably in context of this, the last 3 years we've been doing round tables, and that's around people in senior leadership roles or people looking to get into senior leadership roles. So much smaller amount of people in there, but when you've got people of the same level virtually, then it becomes a very close-knit bunch and better conversations as well. So is that
Plus you usually get a free meal out of it as well, don't you, Jon?
You get free meal, maybe even free wine sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, Jon, we want to dig in a little bit to what makes up a recruiter, but we've never had a recruiter on the podcast. In actual fact, we generally don't have recruiters at the events we run. You know, you've run your own events. You know, it can be a little bit like sort of all recruiters. What's their agenda? Why are they here? They're going to pitch some people. Are they going to? So, you know, basically, we thought it would be great to get a recruiter's perspective on this. And our audience is largely technology leaders or wannabe technology leaders or people trying to find out about what makes a technology leader tick. So we're definitely going to ask you some questions about what you think the modern technology leader looks like from a recruitment perspective. But before we do that, you said you've been going at Burns Sheehan for a while. How did you get into recruitment? Did you wake up one day and go, I want to be a recruiter? I mean, did anybody ever wake up one day and say they want to be a recruiter? Is that how that works?
Well, I actually woke up when I always think when you get to about 30 years old, there's big decisions in your life about what you want to do, about whether it's you want to settle down or my one was particularly a job. And I did a degree in quantity surveying. I was a chartered quantity surveyor. And I really had no interest in that area. And then it just so happened someone I knew back in the day was called an IT recruitment business. And he said, why don't you come and try this out? I'd never done sales. I've never done anything like that. And I actually said to him, because I'd never even sent an email by the time I got my interview. So I said, I know nothing about tech. And he said, this is all about relationships. It's all about relationships. And if you're people's people, you'll be fine. And actually, all these years later, you have to love the job because it is about people. And you just don't know what's going on in people's lives. So the idea is keeping as close as you can to people. And I think the best recruiters, as you were saying, the best recruiters, you line them all against the wall. I'm sure most people would want to, but they're all about building relationships. That's what they are. They're ultimately, they're ultimately about that. And I think a lot of them, they don't like letting people down. So they covered those things off quite well. So, so that was then, you know, we were talking Y2K and all of that. Because I was 30, so I didn't get into it young. I was I think I was lucky that my network were also about 30. So my my network sort of let me learn the job, learn the trade. And then luckily enough, who knew who, and you could sort of, you know, you had sort of experienced people recommending you in. And I think, again, good recruiters, it's like, it's a big thing for someone to open the door for you. And then it's actually, right, what do you do? Because you feel like, I don't want to let myself down, but I don't want to let that person down who's just opened that door for me. So I think that thing sort of bodes well for it. So that's how I got into it. Started working there. 3 years later, a certain Sean Burns started to work with us. He'd just got to 30 and was a teacher and was looking to get out of teaching and professional rugby. We had mates who knew each other. I had a cup of coffee with Burnsy and then got my boss to offer him a job. And then we worked together there for 3 years. And then we set up Burns Sheehan in March.
And the rest is history. The rest is history. Right. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
And Jon, as you say, you've been going for a few years, having kind of having started and evolved in your career. And has it really changed your role and your position? I mean, one thing that comes to mind is we hear a lot about AI and technology nowadays, and we hear about people preparing their CVs using AI and companies using AI to screen CVs that are sent in through them. I mean, has technology and the evolution of technology changed your role in particular, or what are the big changes that you've seen in that time?
Yeah, so there's a lot of big changes, because obviously when I got into it, there was no LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll come back to LinkedIn, but there was job boards and, a simple bit, whereas I think it was JobServe and JobSite, you can only put 300 characters on there to put a job. So it's basically say Java developer, 5 years, banking. There you go. And you went through that, and then that built, then obviously LinkedIn. I think it has changed, because whatever we do, AI is affecting everything we do. I still believe that the best companies look for the same people, in terms they look for bright, passionate, curious technologists with the right attitude. If you get that, then I don't think a lot of that has changed. I feel sort of it's how you measure that and how you look at that. I don't think that has changed from the really good companies building the great cultures and stuff like that.
Yeah, fascinating. And I mean, have you seen shifts in, this podcast? It's called the CTO Lens, and a lot of the work we do is focused specifically on CTOs. I know you mentioned you're looking a little bit more broadly than that at the moment. I mean, if you had to describe the sort of skills or abilities or approach beyond, as you say, being bright and passionate, that a CTO needs nowadays, how would you encapsulate that?
Yeah, I think for the last 3 years, it's probably changed from what it was before that, because I think sort of previous to that, people were looking for, you had a lot of scale up. So a lot of people were like, have you managed growth? We want growth and everything around growth. And that, I think almost there was like this, CTOs was sort of, right, they were looking after the technology and growing that team as the rest of the business grew and did what they were trying to do. I think in the last sort of 3 years, I think we're looking at CTOs who are very commercial. Yeah, they need the ability to grow teams and grow organizations, but they also know how to build products that actually are commercial. And I think when you're looking at, if you're looking at CV, I think a CEO is going to be looking for the commercial side. What have you done? And I think sometimes there's a little bit there where I think you get some CTOs who might be more comfortable with being a change agent and someone who can go in and transform and do that and maybe take it to a certain point, and then it's not really their bag, so there'll be a change agent somewhere else. Or you're looking at a CTO where a CEO might be looking for, is this a long-term leader in my business? And I think some of those, again, if you look at the really good companies, I don't think they're looking for that person just as a CTO for the rest of their career. I think they're looking at, could they be our COO? Could they be our CEO? Is there succession planning around that? I think depending on what that company is looking for, it's how they see that CTO.
So that's really interesting, Jon, right? It's just, like Sophie said, we tend to focus on the CTO role, but actually it could be anything, right? CTO, COO, CIO, or it morphs a little bit. Yeah. And how do you position yourself, right? Let's just go with a technology leader, right? I'm a technology leader. I've got a bunch of experience through a particular couple of industries or a particular skill set or whatever, right? How do I position myself, right? How do in this busy market? How do I find the blooming jobs? I mean, that's your whole life, is to find people like me work. How do I help you do that? Because that's what I think our audience will want to know. I mean, you're not the only recruiter I talk to. I mean, you're the only one I love, but you're not the only recruiter I talk to, Jon, right? And when I'm trying to position myself, I sort of go wherever who's engaged in me. Is that right? Am I spreading myself too thin? Should I sell my soul to you?
No, I think you need various points of contact. I think as I've probably said to you before, DC, that if I'm talking especially to senior people, I don't have every client, and so therefore I think it's part of understanding being a CTO of what you're looking to do next and how you're looking to do it. I had a very senior product director, one of their very senior leadership team left to become a CEO of the company. And when they were just having a cup of tea with them, they were saying that, this was 2 years in advance. Yes, she was very happy where she was, but she knew that actually the right role might not come up when she chooses to start looking. The right role might come up 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It just so happened to be 18 months afterward. But she was quite deliberate in building those relationships with the right people in her area to go and do it. And I think you're right to, not talk to everyone, but ones who have built up credibility and ones who other people refer and talk. Because again, it's still back to that big thing that I think we met through another referral, or I've met some of your referrals. So I've got back in mind where we know each other. So it's constantly, I think you're constantly looking for mutual points of contact to go and do that. And I know, like, over the years, it's timing. It's still human beings. You don't know what is going on in someone's life. And you might have a CTO role, but it might not be the right timing for someone. It might not be the right side for someone. It might not be, in this day and age after COVID, it might be too many days a week in the office. Don't get me started on that. And all those things that go into it. It's quite a unique set when you sort of start looking at it. It comes down. But I definitely think there's, most CTOs that I would know would say, if something really interesting comes up, then can we have a chat? And it's like, yeah. So you can, you've got that, but actually they're also quite good about saying it's not the right time for me because we're doing some good stuff over here. And it's like, that's no worries. So I think you're right to, spread yourself thin. I just think there's a bit where it's your career and therefore you got to take that seriously about how you're going to go about it.
Agree.
And that's something that I think we hear a lot at our events. The market where it is at the moment, it's a buyer's market, so to speak, and you have these sort of mass exoduses or redundancies, and there aren't that many roles growing. There aren't that many companies who are looking to bring people in, and you get the sort of squashing of, okay, well, I'm a CTO, but I guess I'll settle for VP of engineering because I need to pick something. I have mouths to feed. I have a mortgage to pay.
Yeah.
What role would you say patience is playing? Should people try to be patient? Do you have any predictions for the market?
Yeah. So 2 parts of that, Sophie. I think I would say that you're spot on. That there's, redundancies and layoffs. So people are coming into the market. There's a responsibility for the headhunter or recruiter to find the right person for his client as well, or her client as well. So some of those people might still be in jobs as well. It's not just the people who are currently looking for the roles. It's the people that are already in those roles. So I think that bit is really key to it. Because I would say a lot of the time, this goes on to a bigger thing about LinkedIn and the rest of it, because a lot of the time, CTO roles or very senior leadership roles, I would say in technology, will not be advertised because it becomes, it can sometimes be much harder to control a recruitment campaign if you've, especially with this market at the moment, you suddenly, there are people out there who wouldn't mind they're not worried about the level to a certain extent. They're not worried about that. They want a job, right? And that's really big. What's added to that a little bit is, I think it's too easy to apply for roles. That'd be my gut feel. And therefore what then happens is you've got people who, and I can understand, like, are really looking for a role, but they couldn't do the role that they're pitching for, but they're making noise so that some of those others who have applied, who could be the right fit, you see it, that there's hundreds and hundreds of people applying. There's not hundreds and hundreds of those people who could do the role. There's very few of them. And I think that is very difficult. Patience for me is one, but that's very easy for me to sit here and go, yeah, to say to all my CTOs, you've got to wait for the right role, when actually someone's got a mortgage to pay, et cetera, and they've got to do that. But I think added to it, let's look at the other side. I think someone, I don't know, you'd have heard it, someone called it the great stay or something like that, where I've never heard that until last week. And I'm quite a big believer in that, because I do think to a certain extent we've had 3 years of not much. Okay, AI is here and that will change things, but I don't think there's been, for a lot of companies and a lot of stuff, there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of building new products. Everything. I think there's been an awful lot of business as usual, and technologists love building stuff. They love it. What will get them starting to look and a bit twitchy is when they're not building stuff and it's just looking after stuff. And I think that is something. So I'm a big believer in that, and I think there's a bunch of people there not overly happy, but at the same time, if someone said to me, "What's the market?" I would say, "Stay where you are at the moment. But if a role comes along that looks a really good fit, we'd be in touch with you."
I think a lot of my peers, colleagues are in that position, Jon, right? I think that, I I was one of the first who didn't get that advice from you, Jon, until about half an hour after I resigned from the position 2.5 years ago. So, it was like I could have done with that advice a little bit, but I am one of the fortunate few who, I'm this magical fractional thing, whatever the hell that means, and I have work, so I'm grateful for it. But I'm always thinking about a little bit down the road. So there's people who don't have work now. There's people who are in, maybe as you describe it, a job which isn't necessarily flicking their switch. And then there's people who have got work, but it's fractional or interim or whatever. And so those people, how should they position themselves? Like, give us a little bit of insider knowledge. What are you looking for? Like, I post a lot on LinkedIn, right? Now, I don't know, maybe it gets an occasional comment and stuff like that, but is it hosting a podcast, appearing on a podcast, turning up at networking events? How do I maintain my profile so that when that job comes along, somebody calls me?
Yeah. So I think actually, sort of like, if you're looking at you were always doing events before the last few years, before you went fractional. You were heavily involved in events when you were Naked Wine. Before that, you're always someone. So actually, throughout that, there's history of you doing that during your time, and therefore, there's a bunch of us who sort of follow you and listen to what you say, as long as it's relevant conversation. I think that is a really good one. I think there's a bit sometimes where people then go, I'm looking, I've got to get on LinkedIn. And it's as though, I don't know, it's as though us recruiters are sitting there thinking, oh, thank God, there's an absolute guru there, just giving, it's not. I think they're also, there's a great majority of CTOs who are not putting stuff on LinkedIn. Do you know why? Because they're too busy doing a really big job and looking after their teams, and they've got that. There's others who are able to find the time. There's a couple of people that I'd sort of follow that they've got that time, but they're relevant in that space. They're telling everyone, but I think they're probably using that to market their technology and their technology teams, because they're probably hiring, and therefore it's not about them, but it definitely gives them a bit of presence when you're thinking about, subconsciously, if you're thinking about a good CTO somewhere, you've got that. But I don't think I think there is, I think a lot of the time recruiters are on LinkedIn far too much as it is. And actually, a lot of us are probably, like, as Sophie said, there's a lot more going on trying to keep up with everything. And I find sometimes I need to turn it off because you start getting easily distracted on what you're trying to do. So I think sometimes that I definitely think networking events, I definitely think, things like these round tables that we do. The reason why I say it is because I've seen how over the last 2 or 3 years, those different areas of data or product or engineering, people have bonded. They might have bonded over a glass of wine in the first one, but now every sort of 4 months that they're getting together, it's new stuff. And actually, they've gone through periods where some of them got roles, some of them haven't got roles, some of them are looking. And do you know what? Those peers help each other. They're not necessarily going through Burns Sheehan, but they've built up a good network. And I think those things, but you've got to have something to say. So I think it's sort of, it's such a difficult one because it's such a big topic. But ultimately, I think you sort of, if I'm looking at CTOs, we would more go after people than advertise, or even, but actually, if I looked at someone's profile and they had some really relevant things that they've done on there, and blogs and posts and podcasts and stuff like that, I'd be interested because that's part of the sell, saying to the CEO, have a look at this. That they're obviously quite passionate about this area.
I've got opinions. I can communicate. There's different things about it. I think, Jon, there's an opportunity for you here to create a LinkedIn badge which is approved by Jon Sheehan. I think that would be a nice little badge, for content creators. Content approved by Jon Sheehan. I'll take the first badge.
Yeah,
Number 2, please.
We're doing this. We're doing this here, but any good seasoned recruiter worth their salt, he or she is having lots of conversations every day with people in their networks to see how they are, what's going on, etc., etc., etc. And we all know, like, sometimes you're very happy in something until someone throws you a curveball and says, "What about this one?" And it's like, oh, I never even thought about that. Yeah, that ticks all the boxes for me. So I think that is what a lot of good people do. You go out and meet people. I remember 2015, DC, when we met for a coffee at Waterloo Station, and it must have been you were very happy at Sky for years and years. And you told me I was the first recruiter you'd met in 7 years. It's like, one thing for me was I was always big on meeting people and always have been. So it's just like, there is that bond where you meet people. I think it's much harder when we're over VC or even over a phone. When you grab a coffee with someone, have a cup of tea with someone, all of that helps a little bit because you've got that extra time with that person.
Does that resonate with you, Sophie? You're out there a little bit now, ducking and diving a bit, right? Is that are you meeting lots of recruiters? What are you doing?
Yeah, meeting some recruiters. I think I've found similar to what you're saying, Jon, the kind of long-term building relationships with companies, getting to know them, offering value, and then often they'll come directly to you. But it's maybe to do with the size of company that I'm working with. Often they'll say, we don't really have it in the budget right now. And so that's something that any one person can bear in mind. If I like the really teeny tiny startups, then maybe building relationships with recruiters isn't the right place. But if you're looking for something a little bit more substantial, then maybe it is.
Yeah, and also there's not just the recruiters. There's a lot of really good internal talent people who are seasoned recruiters, and I think always just keep in touch with those people because you don't know where they're going to be tomorrow. You don't know what's going on there. So I think our world's changed. I think it was up to last year or the year before, average tenure in technology in a role was something like 2 years, and contract was about 20 months, right? Now that has probably gone out. But if you think about people in technology companies that are going 2 years, people move around more. And therefore, I think some of it is just little points of keeping in contact with it. It doesn't have to be every month, it doesn't have to be every week, but every few months, there's nothing wrong to just do it. And actually, it's quite easy when They don't answer the phone, and you just send them a cheeky WhatsApp message. But I do think there's a bit where, I never think David is not answering because he's ignoring me. I think he isn't answering me because he's too busy. I never think he's ghosting me or anything else. And so therefore it's sort of like, right, he's busy. So I'll give it another week and then I'll call him again and stuff like that. But I think it's easier sometimes to talk to people when they are in more leadership roles because they're more confident about what they've done to date, so they can have a better conversation with you about whether it suits them or not. And it's like, right, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
So listen, Jon, let's wrap this up with the burning question that all of our listeners will want to know.
Okay.
That every recruiter must be fed up of getting asked, which is, what is the market like out there, mate? What is it like? Are the jobs, is it turning the corner that we've been looking for the last little while, or is it all still very dry?
Yeah. I would say it's still, so a lot of people call it challenging from your side. I think it's actually, it's obviously more challenging than it was 3 years ago, but also to a certain extent with 3 years ago, when you got to offer stage, not in terms of big CTOs or those sort of roles, but actually even the next stage down, people had 2 or 3 offers on the table or 4 offers. So you're only 20% over the line from us as a broker getting over the line. This is quite an efficient market where if you've got the roles, then you're probably going to make the placements. That being said, I still think, like, look at the data we've done, there's an awful lot of people who have had more than one offer. So even when you think you've headhunted someone, they might just take a peek somewhere else or might just open it up to the network, say, actually, I could be looking. But my gut feel is, don't think for 1 minute LinkedIn is your only answer to whether the market is busy or not. I think there's other ways of looking at that. And I definitely think conversation is the best one because you get a bit more of a feel for the market about what's going on. And again, I still go back to you guys as leaders. I don't think those jobs always see the light of day. I think that's the point. So don't think that's the one thing to go to. I think build your network.
Perfect.
Great advice. Thank you, Jon. It's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing all of your wonderful insights. I know our listener base is really going to appreciate knowing, not only where the market's going, but what opportunities they have and where they can be looking and where they can be building relationships. So thank you so much for joining us and for all of your insights.
Oh, thanks, guys. I've really, really enjoyed it now.
You're enjoying it now, but only because you were scared that I would tell some anecdotes. And I haven't done. I've been very, very good, Jon. I've been very, very calm and restrained.
Look, I've even had notes on the side that I didn't need to go to. So it's like,
that's all part of the conversation. That's how Sophie and I make you feel. Come in, have a chat. We'll get it off your chest. Tell us about the world. So it was brilliant, Jon. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers,
and keep on keeping on with the recruiting, mate.
That was fascinating, and I think it might now be time for the mid-episode game. Do we have a Games Master Fairy coming to join us?
Oh, that would be good.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good.
How are you?
Not too bad. Apprehensive this week. I'm feeling a little vulnerable to attack from Sophie here. She's got a game face on.
I think it's the only way is up for me, so I'm feeling hopeful.
Well, I'm still personally recovering from having a recruiter on for the first time, but don't worry. We will now play this week's game.
The CTO Winter Olympics.
So, Sophie, David, this week the CTO Lens, the viral CTO Lens podcast, takes on the Winter Olympics. We're keeping it themed, we're keeping it topical, and I designed this all myself. So,
Nice,
The aim of
Amazing.
so what is coming up is a selection of mashed up words. So I have combined some famous tech companies with some famous Winter Olympic sports. There is a clue on each slide, which will kind of give you a hint as to what we're going to. And then hopefully you'll be able to guess both the company and the sport. They are
Got it.
relatively simple, so I'm hoping that you'll both know all of the sports. And obviously, you've been watching the Winter Olympics, so you're big avid fans now.
Yes,
Yeah, definitely
absolutely.
been watching it. Liking the fact that Team GB three goals could be more now. By the time this comes out, don't know, but 3 goals at the time of recording. Very impressed by that.
Right,
Very
so
cool.
today we're playing for gold. So let's see who's going to take gold in the first question. Here we go. This is the first one. It should be nice and
Are we
obvious.
hands upping? What are we doing?
Oh, yeah.
I prefer the shouting out. I think it makes it a
Okay,
little bit
Shout out.
more
shouting out.
edgy.
It's the desperate shout that comes from Sophie that gets me.
So
Oh, sorry. I'm raising my hand, but I will shout it out. It's Atlassian and the ski slalom.
Yes, you are correct. So
Right.
where managing your workflow is as twisty and precise. There we go. That's the clue.
Right.
So each slide's going to have a word and a little clue underneath as well. So moving on to question 2, Sophie's taken the lead.
Nice.
We've got bobsloggle. Finding the
Google
fastest
and
route on the...
bobsleigh.
What was that, sorry?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say Google and bobsleigh.
Yes,
there's not enough
1-1.
G's. There's not enough G's in it.
Well, it's a mashup of words. It doesn't need to have every single letter of
not
every
the
word.
exact letters. All right.
It's
all
more
right,
of like a combination of the words as opposed to every single letter in there, as we did last week.
My one of my CEOs that I work for has just turned 60, and for that, him and his mates went out somewhere. I'm not sure whether it's Italy with the Olympics, but went out somewhere where it's snowing, and they've gone on a bobsleigh together for his
Oh,
60th
wow.
birthday. I'm like, that is cracking, right?
That's amazing.
It's not a
Were they
sport for me.
okay?
No, I wouldn't do it.
Amazing. Right, moving on to question 3. We're currently at 1-1 on the race to the gold medal. Here we go. Data broading, carving through mountains of data at speed.
Oh, data, bricks, and snowboarding?
Correct, Sophie. There we
Yeah.
go.
Right. Nice. Data
2-1.
broading.
Data broading.
I think
That was
data
harder.
broading. We could tell
Yeah.
that.
We are trendy. We are ahead of the game. So you never know. In 2 weeks'
That is
time,
true,
people
that is
might
true.
think, oh, I'm just data broading. Now, in
Yeah,
question number 4. Deluge. Precision
Oh.
sliding hardware.
Dell and luge.
Yes, correct.
Oh, that
Nice, that's a
was
good
two
one.
in the face. That was just sitting there, wasn't it?
Too
I couldn't-
obvious.
I was thinking too hard.
3-1 to Sophie. But this is how it always goes, Sophie. So don't let it slip now.
Yeah. Focused.
Question number 5. Slackeleton.
Slacks
Communi-
and skeleton.
Yes, David Chet.
Very good.
I think you were too polite there, Sophie. I think you had it, but you held back.
I think I did that. I was like, it's too obvious. There must be something else to slack. But no, it's the
I got halfway through that one, decided not to read it out myself. So thank you for doing that.
Very
Right.
sensible.
Question number 6. We have the NVIDIathlon.
Oh, NVIDIA. And so it's biathlon for the winter where they do skiing and then shooting, which are obviously
Correct.
the
You're
two
lucky
most
I
obvious
would have
winter
shouted out
sports.
triathlon for that and got it wrong because that's the summer one,
Ah.
isn't it? But
Yes.
You are correct.
yeah.
Precision performance powered by GPUs, AI, and accuracy under pressure. Look at that. Witty comments for you as well. And
Very
final
good.
question. Sophie's got an unassailable 4-2 lead, but we'll play for pride. The final question is...
Salesforce and curling.
Curling.
That's a draw. That's a draw.
That's the draw. We definitely
It
got
did
that
come
one.
through as a draw. So yes, Salesforce and curling, sales furling, sliding deals smoothly into the target. But I'm
That
delighted
is such
to
a
say...
good tagline.
I do feel like we underplayed the taglines there, and I feel
Yeah,
like
we
we
did.
spent a lot of time on the tagline. So,
Oh yeah.
Can we put the taglines in the show notes just in case people
Well,
want to go back and they're not
may-
watching it?
Maybe
on
this will
YouTube.
encourage people to go to YouTube and watch it and not just listen across our
Oh.
other
Yeah,
podcast
definitely,
platforms. So
definitely.
the game's
Right.
always better on YouTube and you get to see
They are
our
better on
lovely
YouTube.
faces. But Sophie, well done. You are back in the game and thanks very much for playing this
Well
week,
done,
guys.
Sophie, recovering
Yay.
quickly.
Getting there. As long as it's nothing to do with technology, I think I stand a chance in these competitions.
See you next week.
We've got probably a decent disaster diary. Who's talking to us?
We do. So we had something that came into our inbox, and it's about the concept of an accidental CTO. And so I'm really interested in your perspective in particular in this, David, because I don't think you're an accidental CTO. I think you're a very intentional CTO. So let me read to you the challenge that this person's having, and then let us know what you think, what advice you have for them. So I'm sharing my journey as an accidental CTO, someone who landed in the role ahead of schedule and faced a steep learning curve. It happens. My experience unfolded in 4 phases. So phase 1, excitement. I had a team, a vision, and I was eager to help everyone understand the big picture while making their work easier. Life felt energizing, even if I was spending too many hours in the office. Phase 2, exhaustion. As the business grew and the pace quickened, I struggled to balance leadership with absorbing my team's stress and workload. Long days and nights of coding and leading left me overwhelmed and affected my morale. Phase 3, too much technical work. I got pulled into multiple stacks, fixing issues and helping everyone move faster at the cost of leadership. Morale slipped, people left, and trust faltered. Phase 4. Finally, after securing investment and bringing in more experienced people, I could focus on leading, planning, and learning. I rebuilt trust, regained perspective, and started understanding the impact of my leadership. Looking back, leadership seems simple to understand, but is much harder to practice. So here's my question for anyone stepping into a role bigger than expected. How would you navigate those first months to lead effectively without losing yourself in the process? So I think, David, if I'm reading this correctly, this is less a person who's having a challenge themselves right now, but more, what can we do to support people who face a similar challenge to not have to go through all of those phases of, exhaustion, too much technical work, and sort of smoothly transition into their CTO role. So what comes up for you on hearing this?
So I mean, they've kind of answered their own question, but are sharing this experience, right? I mean, basically, they want to do phase 1, which is the excitement, getting your team on board, painting a vision, helping everyone understand the bigger picture, etc., etc. And that often involves a little bit of overwork and overinvestment at the start. You want to skip phase 2, which is exhaustion, because you didn't structure your team properly and because actually you're just trying to be all things to all people. You want to skip phase 3, which is too much technical work, because you misunderstood that your elevation to the next level, to the C-suite, means that you're all about strategy, building the team, unblocking it. You're not about doing the actual work, right? And then it sounds like they landed on phase 4. Now, interestingly, they're saying after securing investment, like that was the answer, right? It's not, that's a good thing because then you can get other people, but it's actually realizing what the role of the CTO, CIO, that senior technology executive is. It's not about doing. And I often have this situation when I start with a new team. I go in, I'm always enthusiastic. I want to understand what they've done. I spend a lot of my time trying not to be pulled down into the weeds. And often they don't understand why. They're like, is he not interested in the detail? Does he not want to know what we do? So I spell it out. I'm very clear about it. And often I'll be found in amongst one of my team meetings saying, yeah, I don't actually do anything. And they all look and they all pause and they wait for the joke. Sort of thing. And I'm like, no, that's it. I don't I mean, occasionally I put together a PowerPoint slide or, write an intelligent email or something, but I don't do any work. And that's the bit that, people just don't get. It's a different level of role. Now, we've talked about this before on the podcast. Depends on the size of the team, of course, right? And, CTO of a large enterprise or whatever is slightly different from the CTO of a startup. But even so, the things are the same. You've got to make sure that you're providing a balance of leadership, and if you are in a startup, a balance of doing. And you just have to work it out. Sometimes it comes down to simple time management. It comes down to communicating your expectation on your team, but also what they can expect from you. So I think that's the thing. And then right at the start, they sort of said they landed a role ahead of schedule. So that's another warning sign for me, is that they've gone through a baptism of fire and they've come out good the other side. But yeah, ahead of schedule, just open your eyes, work out what the role is going to involve. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ahead of schedule piece is really interesting because how do you know what a schedule should be? There are CTOs of different ages and there are people who, enter the position from, different pathways. So I think there's like a really, really sensitive piece here of understanding when do you look at an opportunity, whether it's something you want to go for or something that's being offered to you and say, I'm actually not ready. And when do you say, I'm not sure I'm confident enough. I don't know if I have all of these skills, but I have a plan to learn it. And I think it's that intentionality that you can take into it. I think the phase 1, that sort of excitement is really, really interesting. Often I try to check myself in work. If I'm in a role where everything's fun and exciting, and I'm almost, when I'm not nervous or worried about something, that's almost my signal to say, am I missing something? Should I be thinking about what's happening around the corner? And potentially that's an opportunity for anyone who experiences this pathway. If you have your you enter something and you go, well, I was really nervous about it and it felt like it was ahead of schedule, but I'm having a great time. And nothing seems to be keeping me up at night. That's potentially a warning sign to say, okay, well, actually, what is the growth that's coming around the corner? What are the foundations that I need to be laying so that we can sustain in the growth and avoid that phase 2 of sort of exhaustion? But certainly the point you made, David, around that kind of too much technical work, that's absolutely a theme that we've spoken about before on this podcast. We've talked about it often at the events. This transition into a leadership position can entail an identity shift. And for some people, this really conscious effort to say, I have to put down the work that earned me credit previously, where I kind of built my confidence and established my value, because I'm doing something different now. And, you may need to transition to a handful of really difficult experiences where, as you say, you sit down and go, well, I'm not actually doing anything, and I'm not going to help you with that thing you're asking for my help with. I'll help you in a different way. I'll be a thought partner, but I'm not going to do it for you because that's no longer my remit.
Yeah, and it's such a, because even as you were saying it, Sophie, I wanted to sort of go, oh no, I do help, but I don't help that way. I just help with a bit of guidance, bit of cajoling, unblocking some stuff, but maybe even adding more resource to a project if it needs it. But I don't pull out my coding hands these days, right? I've been known to jump up on a whiteboard and start architecting a little bit, but nobody really likes it, so I've stopped doing it. But yeah, I think it's just setting your team up for success and setting yourself up for success. I think that's the key point. And this particular person listener who's written into us, I think they've learned that. They're just saying, I kind of learned it the hard way. So great that they shared this story here. I think it aligns with yours and my experience, Sophie. Setting yourself up for success takes a bit of thinking, takes a bit of doing, and letting go of a few, maybe the things that got you here won't get you there, right? So you have to just sort of focus on that.
Absolutely. And sometimes you need to go through that journey to really engage with the learnings and truly kind of empathize with the sort of challenges and the changes you need to make. But for me, it's absolutely about sharing those learnings. And that's very much something we try to do through this podcast and through our events. So, to this person, you've been there, done that. You've got some hard-fought, hard-won learnings. So make sure you spend time with your network, maybe get involved in mentoring so that you can pass those on. And hopefully the next person, they may need to make their own mistakes, but maybe only 80% of the full 100% of mistakes that you made. So thank you very much for writing into us. And anyone else who has a disaster diary, do definitely write into us. You can find us at partner@londontechleaders.io. We always absolutely love reading through your disaster diary, so do send them in to us. But David, we've had a fantastic show today. We've talked about everything that's been happening in the news, and that's all the way through from legislation to help keep children safe online, through to updates on this landmark sort of Instagram social media trial happening in the US, through to new sort of agentic AI tools and risks and opportunities associated with that. We've got people who are concerned about AI and they're leaving the space, and we've got a sort of AI takeover a little bit at Airbnb, and some pros and cons of that. We also had a fantastic conversation with Jon Sheehan, who told us all about the market and how to get your next job as a CTO. So we look forward to everyone joining us at our next event and telling us how delighted you are that you've secured that next role, thanks to Jon's incredibly insightful and useful advice. And of course, we've had our disaster diary. And of course, we had our mid-episode game where I finally won one. I think it's been a couple of weeks. So I'm grateful to you, David, for letting me do that. And maybe you'll be kind and do the same again next week.
That'll be great. I'm not sure I let you in, Sophie. I think you probably just beat me fair and square. But I'm just listening to your recap there, Sophie. I mean, we packed in a lot this week, and I don't know. Maybe I'm overexcited from our going viral last weekend. But there's a bit of me thinking, I wonder which nugget is going to go viral. Which bit are we going to clip up and get the excitement of our audience, and hopefully our new audience from the people who followed us last week across the socials. We're really hoping you've tuned in, and please engage with us, like Sophie says, right? We talk about this stuff because it's interesting to us, but we also think it's interesting to you. So keep asking us to talk about different things. We're always open for a chat about pretty much anything technology and product, aren't we, Sophie?
We absolutely are, and we love having those chats as well at our events. We've got one coming up, our Women Plus Tech Leaders, on the 5th of March, and we're going to be talking on the 25th of March about the CTO mandate, the expanding CTO mandate, and so we would love to have that conversation with you there as well. But in the meantime, thank you for sticking around with us. Do remember to subscribe so that you can be the first to hear about our new episodes and opportunities associated with those coming out. And in the meantime, David, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation, and have a wonderful week until I speak to you next.
Thanks, Sophie. Have a great week. Bye.
Take care. Bye.